I got some books over here, not mine. Actually, I brought one of mine, but you know, this kind of stuff, you know.
Okay,
I'll mention it. I'll hold it up, whatever. Makes it more show and tell.
Okay, good. So we're actually live now on Facebook. So hello,
everybody.
Take deep breaths. It's been a day.
Yes, it has.
It's been a day. My air conditioner in the car conked out. So yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me shut my phone off. That's the best thing to do right now. Thank God no one's due to give birth. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, good. So we're going to start. So, hello, people. Today is our live session. Our one-on-one session is actually earlier. It's at 5 o'clock. And today we're going to speak with a very special person. But beforehand, I'll make my usual introduction. So, hello, my name is Mirit Hoffman. I'm an attorney and I have a private practice in Bet Shemesh. My main focus is estate planning, which is to do with trusts and wills and enduring power of attorneys and anything to do with inheritance. And I also advise anybody that has U.S. and Israeli citizenship. And from my exposure with this age group, I decided to host talk sessions with various professionals who work with seniors, basically to expose everybody to a lot of other options. But today we're going to speak to somebody very special, Mrs. Sarah Goldstein, who is a social worker and a doula and a caregiver, about her experiences with taking care of her mother who has Alzheimer's. So no further ado, Sarah, first of all, please, thank you so much for coming and agreeing to be on this with me. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm a few things, a mom, a grandmother, and trying to balance life, as many of you probably are, between caring for my mother, that even though she's in an old age home for 10 years, I've had to go through a lot of emotional and physical somersaults, basically, to trying to get her needs met while trying to get my family's needs met and my own needs met. So I've gone from being a social worker, that's what my college degree is in, to becoming a doula, another form of caregiving, and then my mother. And I think all these kind of merged into one sort of kivun, like path of how to help people, basically. And a lot of it overlaps.
It's actually one path, because social work is about helping people. Doula is about bringing life and helping people bring life into the world. And caregiving is all about helping. So definitely it's all about giving. So you're in a very much giving path. It's very much like that. So some of it overlapped. What I learned in social work helped me in my doula role, helped me in my mothering role, helped me mother my mother's role, you know. So it's very helpful, all the things I learned, and hopefully can give over to others. Okay, well, that sounds good. So let's start from the beginning. How did you basically get involved with Alzheimer?
Well, 23 years ago, my mother started forgetting things, forgetting words, mixing up words, leaving the kettle on, things like that. And my sister, who was the main person, my older sister, watching her, was noticing this. So after some time, not long, she was actually in the Peace Corps overseas. She decided to fly back after her 1 of 2 years stint to get my mother tested. And that's when we realized it's Alzheimer's. So that's when I started doing all my research and reading. But even more so when I finally brought her to Israel. That's a whole other part of the story. Yeah.
Okay, so how long, actually, this is a good introduction to the story. So how long has she been living in Israel? Because I understand now that she actually lived in America first.
Right. She lived in America in her own home. And as many people declare, once they are diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they say, you're going to take me out of my house feet first. I'm not leaving my home. I'm not leaving my city. I'm not leaving my friends and family and my country. But then after a few years of her not managing and my sister trying to get her a caregiver, which she didn't want because all she's going to do is sit here and watch TV with me. I'm not wasting my money on that. My mother is a very tough woman to the point that, yes, she's 23 years alive with Alzheimer's, which nobody can believe she's still around. Then she had to be moved into assisted living. It was independent living, but then eventually assisted living. Everything had to kind of go from her house. Things she had to, the most valuable and precious things she took with her, but obviously there's much less room. It's a one-bedroom apartment. And then she first had an apartment near my sister downtown with a caregiver who was off on Sundays. And then my sister had to find her somebody else to fill in. And of course that wasn't working. But eventually she really needed full-time care, 24/7.
Okay.
So we went into a home.
So what happened? Okay, so then you decide to, so basically the family got together and made a decision to bring her to Israel?
Well, you've probably heard a lot of stories that no, the family did not exactly agree because my mother was not a Zionist and not religious. And the last place she really wanted to come, except to visit her only grandchildren, was to Israel. So that was really tough because once my younger sister really wanted to honor her wishes, which I understand that, but there was not enough care in America because both my sisters were single and there were no grandchildren in America, and we just wanted more care for her. So it was a kind of disagreement sometimes where one sister would say there's nothing in her fridge and the other sister would say her fridge has so much food. How much does a person have to eat this age? So there were a lot of disagreements, unfortunately. And then my daughter got engaged. So to bring her here, we said, Mom, you're coming anyway to the wedding. Why don't you try it out for a year? And you'll have so many visitors. I have 6 children, bless them. So at this point, honestly, she had been volunteering for the Red Cross, giving out cookies and a drink after people donated blood. She was reading for the blind, reading books that were in the library, and they weren't yet in Braille. But then they stopped calling her. And the Red Cross also stopped calling her because she just wasn't handling her job properly. And I think kind of confusing. Friends even stopped calling very much because it was very difficult to have a conversation with someone who couldn't have a conversation. So that was kind of sad. So we brought her here and she agreed to stay for a year. And then she kind of wanted to go home, but there was no home to go to.
Where did she live when she came here?
She was in Philadelphia.
No, when she came to Israel, where did she live first?
Israel? She lived near me in Neve Yaakov. She had an apartment, and I got her a caregiver and secondhand furniture, and I just arranged everything before she came, knowing that she'd be here indefinitely. So she was very near me for a couple of years, and then she really needed wheelchair help at this point. And the landlord, we asked, can we break the wall to the bathroom and then just rebuild it whenever we leave? It was just too narrow for the wheelchair, and he said no.
Right.
So sometimes decisions are made for the caregivers, decisions we may not want, but so be it.
Right. So then what happened afterwards? So where is she living now? What decision did that make you have to do, basically?
She's been to 3 old age homes. The first one was for 6 weeks. It was horrendous. The second one was a little bit better. It was for 2 years, 3 years, and then she had a stroke. I had people coming in, including myself, to feed her because they go kind of quickly in the homes. They have to go to the next person and the next person.
Right.
So I had help, hired help. But then after she had the stroke and she needed a stomach feeding tube, I just felt this home was a bit too pricey for what they were going to provide.
Right.
So I did more investigations to other homes that were sort of on a bus line. It was 2 buses for me to get there, but it was doable. I had to I find with a caregiver has to make it a little bit easier on themselves to make it better for the person who's being cared for.
100%, 100%. And did you have any organizations or agencies that helped you along the way?
Well, there are agencies and organizations. The one that I used was to find a caregiver. But when she was in her home near me, the rented apartment, she actually went to Milavev, and it's an organization in Israel, a daycare center.
Yeah.
It was very, very helpful because it got her out. She also went walking out with the caregiver. I went to her. She went to me. We were only 1 block away. So that was really, it was nice for her emotionally and physically because my mother used to get out and she used to walk and she used to see the neighboring cats and dogs and she just didn't want to be stuck in. Of course. So that was really helpful. But there were other organizations that I didn't even know some of them existed until she wound up being in an old age home. In America and here and online, there's a lot of support groups that maybe some of people know. I could name a few. I actually wrote them down.
Yeah.
Yes, if anyone has a pen and paper or you replay this later, it's okay. So ALZ, Alzheimer's.org, has daycare centers, so /daycare centers, all over. A lot of these are mostly in America, which I imagine some of your viewers are watching from. There's something called Caregiver-online, and it's a Facebook group that shares like ideas and strategies, because sometimes people aren't sure what to do with the Alzheimer's victim, I guess, or we call them.
Patient or person.
Huh?
Patient, I guess, or person or family member.
Family member, yeah. So there's sometimes when I would go back to America to visit, I would, let's play tourist. My mother loved Philadelphia, so I took her to a big park and we saw these old houses from 200 years ago. We went to a dog shelter. She loved dogs, so we visited dogs and we just kind of played like that, tourist. So that's just like another tip, which I'll save other tips later, that you can keep them in a place where they still are involved with society and they're still able to express themselves. That's at that point.
Right. And I guess they still feel like useful or important, and they're not when they're with other people and they can share ideas and they can talk about stuff.
Right. She was even talking to the dogs. She was having such a fun time. It was nice seeing her liven up.
100%. What about you? I can only imagine how hard it is for the caregivers themselves, because you're giving everything you can to your mother. You also have a family of your own, and you're sort of stuck in the middle there, wanting to do what's best for everybody, and it's very easy to forget yourself and your own needs. How did that work for you?
There were a lot of ups and downs. I'll finish. Let me just give you a couple more of these places that I really wanted to share with her that I found much later. One was called caring.com. It's an elder care locator, so you actually can plug in which city, which zip code, and they can find somebody for you. Another one is memory care. It's assisted living. This caring.com goes from assisted living to memory care to senior living to home care. They cover so many bases of what you need for helping your loved one with Alzheimer's. Another one is called Aging in Place. That just started in 2021. It's adult daycare. There are 35% more daycare centers, adult daycare centers. I wish children. I think it's gone the opposite. There's less and less children being born, actually, statistically, and many more daycare centers for adults, because the geographic population has really shifted, and there are many more people living much longer, and that's exactly what's happening. They need more facilities for them. There's also in the United Kingdom, alzheimers.org.uk. And there's a lot of Facebook groups, which maybe this is a good time to mention them.
Sure.
One that I never knew about was called Memory People. It's 24,000 members, and it started in 2010. It was one of the oldest ones. And the other ones are just dementia/Alzheimer family caregiver support. 28,000 people, and that started in 2014. I never knew about it. A lot of tips and pointers and helping, any kind of help you need, whether it's medical help, emotional help, psychologists, so that they have a lot of tips and pointers. What I found here in Israel helpful was called the Sandwich Generation of Israel, and that started 2017, and there's over 1,500 members, which leads you into the question you were just asking, so we can go into that. And then there's a caregiver support group, 47,000 people, started in 2014. So if you look online, you'll see so many ways to get help and support, and just to vent and to cry and to get your feelings heard and your needs met. The most recent one, 2020, is called Caregivers for Compromise. Isolation Kills. So that's for obvious reasons.
Right.
It started with the corona, where people were just not allowed to go into an old age home and see their loved ones. And there were people who were dying without being next to someone who was caring for them all these years. That was also really sad. So people really needed a venting platform. So
Right.
Caregivers for Compromise, and it's still in existence, and there's still a lot of needs. There's plenty more. There's just plenty more started from 2010 upward, 14, 17, 19, and 2020. So I hope that's a good lead into where you can get some help and support. There's also a lot of local chapters of the Alzheimer's organizations of your city. So if you're in Philadelphia, where I'm from, or Canada, or California, you can look in Alzheimer's Org of America, and then you can plug in your city, and they'll also help you with support groups. And
what about Israel? What about in Israel? Did you find any support groups in Israel apart from the Sandwich Generation that you mentioned on Facebook?
Yes, there is Alzheimer's of Israel as well, and dementia. I went to a couple major conference meetings where they were discovering new ways to help people, new medications, which may or may not help. It just helped to go there. And also I work in the birthing field still as a doula, and I saw a doctor there, and he was there because his father had Alzheimer's. And I looked at him and I said, wow, we have something more in common than we realized. And I said hello, and I was sorry for him and that kind of thing.
That was nice.
So you can really connect to other people that you don't even know are going through this. There's a lot of people going through this. And it's just snowballing.
Of course, well, because as you mentioned, life expectancy is getting longer. It doesn't mean that people are living as healthy as they did in their, 60s, 50s, 60s, whatever. They're still getting sick, and dementia is one of the sicknesses that people get when they get older, as they get older.
Early onset, 40s and 50s, early onset. It's awful.
It's true. That is true. So getting back to my initial question, because that's something that people, I think, should hear also. There's a question here about Bituach Leumi. I don't know if you know about it. Does Bituach Leumi provide any assistance? Did you have any assistance from Bituach Leumi here?
Yes, I did. Thanks for asking that question, because I wasn't going to touch on it, so it's good. My mother had Social Security and a pension, which came to just over $2,000, which, of course, the homes here, although they're much cheaper than the ones in the States, her money eventually ran out from her house sale and stocks and bonds and whatever it was. The Yerusha that she kept saying we were going to get, we didn't, but it just went on the caregivers and on the homes. But with Bituach Leumi, there's something called code. You can ask for it. So even though the $2,000 was helpful at the time, it was about close to 8,000 shekels. the Bituach Leumi wound up covering the balance, which was another 5,000 at the time. Now it's another 6. So they do cover it, but of course her Social Security and pension goes to the home. Well, that's, fair enough.
Okay,
Yeah.
but Bituach Leumi does provide some sort of assistance, so that's very, very
yes, they do. And I was a little worried that they were going to sort of come after us and try to get the rest of the money, which here in Israel, that can be a month's salary almost. So they didn't. So that was a big, big relief.
Okay. So let's get back to yourself for a little bit. So
Okay.
Tell us how do you take care of yourself, or how do you take care of yourself along the way? Because this is not easy at all, not emotionally, not physically, not anything. So what do you do? How do you maintain,
Well, we cried a lot in and out. Of course, there were days that I didn't even want to go see my mother because it was too difficult. I have a couple good friends. It really is important to have that kind of emotional support system. My husband, bless him, has been amazing. He would take care of the books and the paperwork and Bituach Leumi and all that I couldn't stand doing. And then he did the hard things that I did, visiting my mother, showering. I'll tell you, vacations are important. Actually, I just printed this out today because I'm really, really aware. But people kept telling me, take a vacation, do something for yourself. So, people can learn to play piano. They can do art. I was very into sports and swimming, and that was very, very helpful because it gets that endorphins rising and happy hormones, they're called. But something really important from the Center to Advanced Palliative Care, and a study was done at the Mary West Health Institute, Gary and Mary West. They took 500 caregivers and asked them, what are your biggest challenges? And one of them was agitation or aggression, which my mother went through a period of time where I couldn't take her outside. She was literally cursing and getting angry, and it was embarrassing to be with her, to be honest, even though I could write it off as it's her disease. It's not her, it's the disease talking. Repetitive speech, 12%, wandering or restlessness was 10%, late day confusion. You can look up this Gary and Mary West Health Institute study, sleeplessness, refusal to eat, paranoia. The respondents identified their biggest Alzheimer's caregiver challenges is dealing with memory loss and impact of the disease on your loved one. The first time I went to my mother, and I was putting on this Andy Williams music, and we were going to go dance around her living room when she was living near me. So I said, come, Mom, let's dance. And she looked at me suddenly, and she tilted her head to the right and to the left, and she said, who are you? Now, I knew that was coming one day, but when it came, I was finished. But we know it's going to come, so that memory loss was really difficult.
I'm sure it was.
And handling the stress emotionally and having patience with your loved one. You just have to keep saying it's the disease, it's not her talking. Keeping the loved one positive and motivated is important, and get daily activities, managing and administering medications, all these kind of things, and speaking with loved ones' healthcare providers. So, raising 6 children, bless them, and being a doula for 8 years before bringing my mother to Israel. So that was, again, another form of giving, but this was so different. I was thinking, sure, I can do this. I've been helping women through birth. I've been helping, raise my kids, watching the grandchildren, helping with them. This is so different. And I didn't acknowledge it enough. I didn't give myself credit, didn't pat myself on the back enough, So when people, though, kept saying, take a break. It was hard because I committed myself personally. Don't get nervous, anybody. 3 times a week, I was going to go shower her. I didn't like the way they did it. She was uncomfortable. Sometimes she screamed. I think she felt like the water on her skin were like knives, or her skin was much more sensitive. So I just said, I'm showering her. So 3 times a week, which if someone has another job, or if I had a birth and couldn't come, like my job was very flexible. Right. But then I wouldn't go that day. So, people could say to you, you have to take care of yourself. You have to not be so committed to this. But I said, well, who's going to shower her? Who's going to take care of her? Who's going to massage her? And I was just feeling so guilty if I didn't show up. So I think I heard these voices long enough that I just said, okay, I'm just going to fall apart. And if the caregiver falls apart, then who's going to help her? Exactly. And it's true. A lot of caregivers literally have gotten illnesses and died before the one they're taking care of.
It's true. Very true.
So at this point, my mother was in the home. She didn't know me. And Europe is just a stone's throw away from Israel. So I would take 2 or 3 nights vacation to Prague, to Switzerland, and my husband and I would just change total scenery, literally. And it's really important for people to do that. Or again, if you can only be for a day, go for a day trip somewhere down to the shore, down for us, the Dead Sea, Cape May, wherever it is, go up to the mountains just overnight, let's say 2 days, take these breaks. And simple little things like a massage, aromatherapy, a swim, take up painting if you haven't done it in so many years. We have to take care of ourselves. We do. And a lot of times it was a choice. It's my husband or my mother, my children or my mother. And I was thinking, wow, that's a heavy duty choice. Anyway.
Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah. You know what you reminded me when you were talking about taking care of yourself, which is really important. You know, when, you know, those, when you go and you have when you're on a flight and there's always a stewardess explaining how to deal with various things. And one of the things that they always mention is if you need to put a mask on you, an oxygen mask, first you put it on yourself and then you put it on the child. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you will never be able to take care of the child. And I always found it very difficult when I was traveling with my little kids, because for me, the first instinct, of course, was to put it on the child. But it's true, you have to take care of yourself.
When you reach, your heart goes out to that child, but if you don't put the mask on yourself, you can't help anybody else. Right. 100%. There were some fun books I read, Chicken Soup for the Soul, Living with Alzheimer's. Some of the stories were wow, some were funny, some you just had to laugh because some things that they would say were so absurd and so ridiculous. At least it gave you a good laugh, but it's about caregiving, coping, and compassion. That's what we try to do. This was another one I really liked, Creating Moments of Joy. I don't know these authors. I don't have any percentage of promoting these books.
I'm sure you don't.
And there's many more out there. Some are stories of people who also went through it. It was too hard for me to read those.
Right.
There was another book, a lot of emotional things called Connecting the Dots. I don't have it with me. I borrowed it and then I lent it onward. Connecting the Dots. It was a lot of connecting, literally how to bring out the best in them, how to connect to them, how to, you know, show them pictures before it gets too bad. Situation. Really great.
No, there was. I have a client, and her mother her mother passed away, but she had Alzheimer's before she passed away, and we were having a discussion. And one of the things that she mentioned was, I always went with the flow of my mother's mindset at the time. I never argued with her, although it was ridiculous, but I never argued with her. I said to her, give me an example. What are you talking about? So she said, my mother was in a home and the home called and they said, listen, she's hysterical. She needs to leave because she decided she needs to leave because she needs to pick up her little kids from school. So she's going crazy trying to leave the house, like the home, and she can. So she said, put me on the line. So she went online with her mom and she goes, hi, Mrs. So-and-so, don't you remember? I'm the babysitter today and I'm taking care of the kids. I'm taking them to the swimming pool and then we're going to have pizza. Did you forget? And she was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And that calmed her completely down. She said, I had to say it. It just doesn't mean anything to my mom. But my mom was totally fine after that and totally relaxed. I just went with the flow.
My mother had a best friend. We called her aunt since they were 15. And she thought it was ridiculous how I placated my mother. But why not? She would get so frustrated and agitated otherwise. And I would never say, did you remember? Like you just said that. It's natural for us to say it to each other, but no, of course she didn't remember, and she'll get frustrated hearing that, you know. So I'm the babysitter and I'm coming today, whatever, just different types of things like that, just so she wouldn't get more agitated. It's really important. Right. That's why the Connect the Dots book was really nice. Yeah. Should I mention mine or no?
I would like you very much to mention, or as I know that you wrote a book when we discussed it before, and you wrote a book, and I'd like very much for you to talk about it, please. So let everybody know.
Well, I'll keep it short, but I just basically felt that I was reading a lot of different books, including the 36-hour day, and they were really helpful. But then now I was here, literally, in the old age home, and now what do I do? How do I relate to the staff? How do I do self-care? How do I help my mother? How do I deal with the medical staff, the doctors, the nurses? How do I relate to them on a level where they're going to accept what I have to say? Well, obviously by learning a lot of what's going on with my mother. So I wrote a book. It's on Amazon, actually, and it's going to be out soon in the Jewish World, Manuka Press. And it's basically Now You Are Here, like navigating nursing home care for a loved one with Alzheimer's. It's not her particular story, because there's a lot of stories of couples or of a woman helping her mother. It's basically stories and tips, whatever point she's at in a home, and how to, like I said, deal with the staff, self-care, different aspects of it. That I was short and easy to read, because once you're there, you don't want to read anything lengthy. You want it short, easy, and it's fun stories, interesting stories. They weighed them in the homes to see if they're losing or gaining weight. So one of the times I told one of the orderlies, the aides, okay, let's get on the scale, but don't tell me if it's above 60 kilo. So I just would make jokes with them and buy them presents, and it would just make the atmosphere much lighter and much easier. And if they had difficulties, and I saw one was crying once, and I just talked to her, what's going on? She needed surgery. She didn't tell the nurses or the doctors. She told me all about it, what she had to go through, because I was listening, I was caring. Because she's changing my mother's diaper, for crying out loud, like for minimum wage. We just have to understand things from their viewpoint as well.
Really important. It's really important. Lovely that you wrote about this. It's so important. Sometimes when you're in it, you don't even realize how important it is to just sit with them for a little bit and talk to them.
And I would see people coming in and sitting next to their loved one, but not stroking them, not holding their hand, not washing their face. They just kind of sat next to them because they were so far gone. They figured, what's there to do here? And there's music to play. There's lots of things to do. And so I just said, okay, let's put it into writing. I have a passion for Alzheimer's in the time before, for births.
I think it's super important what you did. There's a question here somebody asked me. Let's see if you can reply to this one. She's in the process of bringing her mother-in-law to Israel, and her elderly mother-in-law to Israel, and she wanted to know what are the top 3 tips you can give her on that front.
Bring her most beloved possessions. Set up wherever she's going. I don't know if she's going into a home or to a regular apartment, but make it as similar to what she's been used to. Pictures on the walls of whoever she would have, wherever she had them, whatever you can bring that's familiar. Familiar is really important to these people.
Right.
And whatever money she can bring, because she's going to run out quickly. Seriously, whatever, and set up your own support system. Days people can visit with her. We had pizza parties on my kid's birthday. My mother loved pizza, so we had pizza parties. Whatever she loves, what's familiar, foods that she likes, make sure you make a note of that. And my mother loved the old movies. So if you can get a list of those, she loved the ice skating, the Olympic ice skating. So we brought a bunch of DVDs at the time. You can probably get everything online now, but we brought the Olympic winners. So she had some DVDs. We bought a few extra. So everything that's familiar and that she loves to do and to eat. And
those are really good tips. Those are really good tips. Those are really good ones.
But
okay.
If people have more questions, I have no problem if they want to email me. They can ask more questions.
Okay. Well, I can talk to you for at least another hour on this, but we have to unfortunately end it. So first of all, I want to thank you very, very much for coming and talking and exposing yourself and what you went through. I think I'm assuming that it would really help all the other people who are watching and listening and who are going to be listening in afterwards. Sarah's number is on the screen, and if anybody has, specific questions, she said she's more than happy to help. And of course, her book is really important for people who are going through it or think they're going to go through it. It would be a very good idea to probably purchase the book. And if you need any more information about the book, then please contact Sarah. She's also very happy to give information regarding that. If you have more comments and you want to write them down on Facebook, then, we'll try to reply. And in the meantime, thank you very much for listening in, and everybody should have a really good evening, and I'll see you all on my next live. So bye for now.
Good luck, everyone.